Today's guest took such a circuitous route to the NFL that he has proclaimed, "I'm probably the most unlikely football player there is." Well, opposing quarterbacks wish he'd take a less direct route into their backfields because he's the guy who broke the seasonal sack record in 2001 when he was the Defensive Player of the Year. He's one of the most formidable and familiar figures in sports. It's my pleasure to welcome the New York Giants All-Pro defensive end, Michael Strahan. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you?
You have had a fascinating life as the son of kind of an army brat, right? Uh-huh. Growing up in Mannheim, Germany. And your father, Gene, your mother, Louise, raised a son that they wanted to take advantage of every opportunity, and you've certainly done that.
Yeah, somehow, some way, I'm here. I'm sitting on your show, which means I've made it. So somehow, some way, I went from Mannheim, Germany to Houston to New York, and It's been here a long time. It's just an amazing ride.
Your father, Gene, must have been, and still is, I'm sure, an extraordinary figure, not only in your life, but in his own life. I mean, here's a guy who was 1-1 against Ken Norton.
Yeah, or at least he told me he won one of those. I don't know. he may have been knocked out and didn't remember anything. Yeah, my dad was a boxer in the Army, but it was interesting. As kids, we always would go to the gym. We'd train. I mean, we practiced boxing, myself and my three brothers, and we always were active. We always went running with his platoon and different things like that in the morning. And so for us, it wasn't unusual to be up at 5:30 to go running in the summer when you think that you should just be laying in bed. He wasn't having that. He was going to make you work.
Yeah, your brothers had a nickname for you, Bob, right?
Oh, man. Do we have to go to Bob?
Bob.
It brings back such bad memories. I may start crying on the set.
Maybe that's what Bob's about, brings back bad memories. But that really wasn't the acronym, was it?
No, Bob actually meant booty on back. You know what I'm saying? My butt was so big, and I reached for my wallet like this, sit in the movie theater, and nobody could see.
Right?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah,
13 years old.
Well, I still have a big butt, though. That's the problem. I don't think it ever went away. But one thing I will say about Bob is that I was 13 years old. They used to make fun of me, and it really got to me. It made me want to work out. It made me start to really work out, to where I bought Jane Fonda tapes. I hate to admit it, but Jane Fonda tapes where you do your little butt exercises. Mm-hmm. I bought those. Herschel Walker workout book was like my first really workout book that I bought, with the push-ups, the sit-ups, the running up the hills. It really made me motivated, not so much for a sort of sports sense, but from a fitness sense. And that just kind of translated into work ethic, I think, now for me today.
The Herschel Walker tapes, you were so involved in them that when Herschel came to Europe, you had him autographed.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. When Herschel Walker came to Europe, he was with the USFL, the Generals. I think he was the first pick. And we went to Heidelberg, Germany. He was signing things for one of the companies promoting. And I went and had my picture taken with him and had an autograph. And it was amazing because I was 13 at the time. And I played with Herschel.
In '93.
Played against him and played with him.
Played with him, too. Right.
Yeah, so it was just pretty amazing to see that transition, to see one of my favorite players, to playing with one of my favorite players. It made me realize how old Herschel Walker really was.
The New York Giants go to training camp on July 28th, and I'm going to be back with Michael Strahan to talk about some of the things you may not know about training camp right after this. I'm back with the All-Pro defensive end of the New York Giants, and for all you Giants fans out here, this guy is so popular. I said you were going to talk about training camp, and you told me before the show today some things about training camp that I didn't realize. You train in Albany.
I train up in Albany, so it's a few hour ride from home, and you're basically, it's 5 or 6 weeks of you just work. It's like a movie, Groundhog Day. Where you wake up in the morning, you do something, you go to bed, you wake up, it's like, I have to do the same thing over again, nothing's ever changed. And that's really it. And you have very little time to really do anything away from game of football. But at the same time, it's also a lonely existence because you're by yourself. You have to really go inside of yourself internally to even make it through. It's a very, very tough process.
Most guys do not have their families there, is that right?
No families. No
Whereas in
family.
spring training in baseball, it's almost a piece of cake when you compare it because the families are down there. It's a leisurely time of year. Guys have to get in shape, but from a familial standpoint, it's a lot different.
Yeah, I mean, I realize now I picked the wrong sport. You know?
No, you didn't.
I tell you, man, if I could just hit it over the fence, oh, man, I would do that in a heartbeat. But no families, curfew, bed check, meetings. I mean, we wake up in the morning, you have breakfast at 7:30, and then you may have time for a nap in the middle of the day for about an hour, hour and a half, but then you're not finished until 10:15 at night. You come out of your meetings at 10:15 and curfew's at 11. So it's structures that you don't have time to do anything except for focus on the game of football. And after a week or a few days of that, it really becomes tough. And I think that's why you see a lot of guys who peter out, who start out great and then don't finish, guys who look great at the beginning of training camp and don't make the team, because it's really mentally, it's very tough to continue that process. But you have to look at the end result, which is the fun part, which is playing during the game, the regular season.
I would imagine it would be mentally tough also while you're in training to not be able to get to the quarterback.
Yeah.
You can work on your moves with the interior linemen, the tackles and stuff like that, but once you get to the quarterback, you've got to stop, don't you?
I mean, those guys in the red jerseys, you know, the Eli Mannings and all those guys. And you work so hard to beat this 330-pound guy, and then you get there and you have to stop. You can't even get close. And I always tell the young guys, if you want to go home early, you're sick and tired of this, run up there and hit Eli. They'll get you out of here in a heartbeat. They'll send me home if that's the case. So you learn to work on your moves, and I think that's once you get to the game, that's always been a big motivating factor for me, because I look at the quarterback and I think, you know what, I've had to put on these pads and bang against people all week, all year. You don't get hit, especially if you have a good offensive line. So I want to make you pay for all those things that I've had to go through that you haven't.
You talked about the 330-pound tackles. You weigh only, what, 275, 280?
Oh, you know what?
I
Actually,
say only because
right now I'm probably 260. So during the season, 268 to 272. I always get that. You're not as big as I thought you were. You know, that's the thing I get the most, which is a compliment.
But absolutely. But your leverage in getting up under tackles is really one of the key reasons for your success.
Well, I think for me it's been, I look at pass rushing as like an art. It's like chess. You know, you set a guy up, and my biggest thing, I've been very fortunate to have leverage and have strength. And but at the same time, I've studied Bruce Smith and Reggie White and LT and Tim. All the guys who.
What do you study when you watch?
I study their footwork. I study their technique. I study how they set guys up. I study how they get guys off balance. But then you have to find what works best for you. And I found what works best for me is I only have like one or two moves. And for some reason, it's kind of being a dancer, and you have one or two moves, and you throw a little something in there. Really. Is like a flash. Makes it look like you can do something really good and really groovy, but you really can't. And it's like deception. It's like chess. I show you something that you think I can do. I really probably can't to give you what I really want to do. And it's just like a mental game for me.
I read somewhere that sometimes instead of, in doing research on you, sometimes instead of moving from side to side, you rely on the old-fashioned bull rush.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, being that I'm only 270 during the season or whatever, and you have a guy who's 330, to me it's more of a battle of the will, because I know in his mind, he knows I'm going to bull rush. That's been one thing that everybody looks at me as the power rusher. And I know the first rush I have, he's thinking, I'm not going to let him bull rush me today. He's not going to do to me what I've seen him do to others. So that's the first thing I'll do. Just to push you back to the quarterback. I don't care if I get a sack on that play. I just want you to know in your mind that when I will myself to push you back there, that you're going to go. And there's nothing you can do about it. And then from that standpoint, once he thinks I can bull him, he's going to start to squat and get low. And once he gets low, then I can run around because his feet are stopped. So it's like I set him up with the bull rush so I can work outside on him and I can work inside on him. And it's really, the bull rush is the basis for everything I do.
Once you establish that, you feel like you can do.
Because I take you take a little bit of a guy's mojo away. If you're a boxer and you've never been knocked out, and then one guy knocks you out, you don't feel invincible. And if you're an offensive tackle, and you've never really been bull rushed, you've been bull rushed. It makes you feel a little vulnerable.
That's an idea of a bull rush right there, and we'll be back with the great defensive end of the New York Giants, Michael Strahan, right after this. Michael Strahan set an NFL record with 22 and a half sacks in 2001, and yet you say you don't play angry.
No.
That's a very interesting comment from someone who most people think that professional football is an angry sport, that you've got to be mean, you've got to go get them in an angry way, but not your
You don't
philosophy.
have to. I tried it early on in my career, and it just doesn't work. It's too exhausting. I used to think, oh man, this guy, me picture he said something about my mama. Can't do that every week. It just doesn't work. So now, I just prepare. I watch film, I watch tape, and I study. And then when I go out there, I'm calm. I can come off the field and have a conversation like this with you. Then they say defense, and I put my helmet on. I go out there and I do what I have to do. Then I come back and we'll finish the conversation. It's very interesting how your mind can operate and you can focus when you have to.
What for those of us who don't know, you mentioned bull rushing and the opposing tackle, but what are the other things that you look for from the interior lineman? Well, a center or a quarterback.
Yeah, after I study my guy, and then I watch tape on the other lineman. Usually the center, sometimes the guy has a little glitch before he snaps the ball. There's one guy, I'm not going to say his name, but he squeezes his offhand twice. And once he closes the second time, then he hikes the ball. Quarterbacks, you have quarterbacks who get under the center. Some lift their heels, some lift their toes, some move their hands, some
On the snap.
On the snap. Or you have some who go under, and then right when they get underneath, they clap twice. Then they do their cadence, and they clap once, and it's coming. So little things like that give you an edge, help you get off the ball better. And
peripherally, you can see all of these things and still pick up your
peripherally, I can see that. For the most part, I'm looking at him. I don't care about him. I've studied him. I know what he's going to do. I'm looking at that quarterback because I have enough time to get off the ball quickly and still focus on what I have to do with the tackle.
It seems to me like you listen to your father not only from the brawn part of athletics, but from the smart part too. I mean, here's a guy, you didn't know anything about football when you first started playing it, right?
No, I had no idea.
Didn't you read about sacking quarterbacks like Street and Smith?
Well, that's
something like that.
I played when I was 7 and 8 years old, and we moved to Germany. And by the time my father said, well, I think you're good enough to get a football scholarship, he sent me to Texas Southern University. I had no idea what I was doing. So I had to learn somehow. And my dad's the type of guy who will buy something, he reads the entire manual in all the different languages.
Loves directions.
And still messes it up, But so I learned from reading Street and Smith, the college football monthly or weekly, whatever it was, that my position, what was important for a defensive end, getting sacks. So I said, man, maybe I should try to do that. And then I watched pro games just like every other kid on TV in college on Sundays. And I just studied the best guys and learned to take a little something from everybody. And I'm fortunate enough to have some good coaches in college and that I had great coaches here in the pros that have helped me along the way.
I remember a story you talking about the most important thing for an end is to get sacks. Do you think that you were perhaps consumed with getting sacks? I remember the problem with Jesse Armstead.
Yeah.
That was a hurtful thing for you.
Yeah, and with Jesse was great. Jesse was one of the few guys who could come up and say, hey, Michael, just play. Don't worry about the pressure. Because I think anytime you're in a situation where you're known for one thing. See, early in my career, I was known as a run stopper, not a great sacker. Then all of a sudden you get sacks and, oh, he's known as a sacker. And then now it's more or less a complete player, which is more what I want to be. I don't want you to run the ball over on my side either because I take pride in that, and I feel like you're running over me if you're running the ball over there. And but Jesse was one of the few guys who can come up and say, Michael, don't worry about sacks. Just go out and play. And to be honest with you, that helped me more than anything else to come from him because at that point I was having a tough season.
The very term play, I know in baseball or any sport, the connotation of play is a lot different than the connotation of work, isn't it?
Yeah.
Play.
And I think that's the only way to last a long time in sports is if you look at it as play. And the work part is now in off season where, man, you're running, you're lifting weights, and you're thinking, why and what am I still doing this? This is so hard. And in training camp, when your muscles are sore, you're tired of running until you're the same guys you've looked at for the whole month. But once you get on that field, and you put on that uniform, I feel like a small guy, to be honest with you. And when I'm around my teammates in a social situation or in the locker room, I just feel like one of the small guys. But when I put on my pads, I feel like the biggest man out on the field. And mentally, that's just my whole mindset, and I try to play that way.
Well, Michael Strahan certainly has been a big man in the Giants' plans for the last decade or more. We'll be back with more from Michael right after this. My guest is the NFL's most fearsome pass rusher, yet he has admitted that he himself experiences fear, the fear of failure.
Yeah, I think
Fear's a great motivator, isn't it?
It is. And I honestly think that athletes or anybody that's really is successful in their field or whatever, sometimes that's the motivating factor. That's the thing that puts them over the edge. That's what makes you work hard. When I'm working out by myself, I'm a fear that somebody else is working out a little bit harder than I am. So maybe I'm overdoing it sometimes, but I think in the end result, it just shows in the way that you play.
You need no incentive to work out. You're saying that when you're by yourself, you don't need anybody with you, any trainer or anything like that.
I think that's from working out with my dad, and going in the gym on a Saturday or a Sunday when, you're 15 years old, 16, and you're thinking, man, I'd rather be sleeping in right now. And he's telling you, you know what, one day is going to pay off. Now, I didn't know what he meant by one day because I never knew that I was even going to come back to the States and play football at that point. But, I think because working out with him as a kid, I can go in now and just work out on my own. I don't need any assistance, nobody to rah-rah me. I can just go do it because I know what the end result will be.
I can't help but think, sitting here, that Eli Manning feels the same way, that he, working out with his father, that having his older brother Peyton, and then coming to New York City, and if he can just learn to relax, right? Wouldn't it be?
It'd be great for him. And I think of any athlete guy I've played with, and he probably has more pressure than anybody. I mean, you have your father who's a great player. You have your brother who's best in the game right now. And here you are, the heir apparent, and everybody expects for you to at least be somewhere in that stratosphere. And you're in the toughest city in the world to do it, media-wise and just with your mental standpoint. So for Eli, I almost feel sympathy for him for the simple fact that it is a lot of pressure. But at the same time, he's so talented. I mean, he can throw the ball, man. He can put the ball places that other guys can't. And I think now he just mentally has to grow. And once he does that, he's going to be a great player and going to be a great team.
You have seen it in your sport. I've certainly seen it in my sport where guys are so talented, but the one thing that they can't do with their talent is relax and allow that talent to come through. That's I remember John Madden saying once that a wideout beat a defensive back and got by him by 10 feet, and he scored a touchdown. And John said his job right now is to forget. Yeah. And forgetting is just as important a job as being a bull rusher or being as talented as you are. And I would think that I get the feeling that New York City feels this about Eli Manning. We're for you. Just try to relax. We understand.
Yeah, and you can't carry baggage. You can't, for a quarterback, that's why I've always respected Donovan McNabb. Brett Favre is a perfect description of that. He'll throw an interception, and then he'll go back and throw another one, and he'll throw another one, but he's still going to do what he needs to do in order to help his team win, and he doesn't care that he's made a mistake before. And I always look at the analogy of golf. You hit a bad shot, complaining about it does nothing. You just better go get in those bushes and get it out of there. You just have to do that. I've done that plenty. That's how I know. I've been scrambling for a while out of those bushes.
What about the Giants this year? What can Giant fans look for?
Wins, and more wins. That's what I'm expecting. And we went out in the free agent market, got some great guys on offense, and I think draft-wise we went defensive. And I think that Plaxico Burress is going to be a great addition. Kareem McKenzie is going to be phenomenal. Antonio Pierce. So I think we really went out and got the guys that we needed for the positions we needed. Guys who are leaders, but guys who could make plays and change the tempo of a game. And I think Kareem on the offensive line is one of the biggest additions because he shores up a unit that's kind of been up and down the last few years.
Just for us novices, the difference between Jim Fassel and Tom Coughlin as coaches?
Jim Fassel is probably more of a loose California type cool, whereas Tom Coughlin is, hey, You come to work, you come to work. You know, I know joking, no laughing. You come in, you put on your pads, you go out here and you practice, and you focus during that hour and a half. And I think that was the difference. Fossil was more of a laid back, and you definitely did work. And I think people had a misconception of him that he wasn't tough, and that he wasn't tough on his players, which he was. But I think it was more of a tough love, where I think sometimes Tom is just tough.
And Jim now with Baltimore, right?
Yeah.
Right. He's the offensive coordinator.
Offensive coordinator of the Ravens, and you know, good for him.
My friend, I can't thank you enough. I hope you've enjoyed it. I have enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.